All right. So we'll pick it up from here. A lengthy discussion ensued on this point. Maybe we should just go back and see what the point was about.
Yeah, yeah.
Celebration of Mahashivratri, a Hindu festival of Lord Shiva. The Hindu Mandali from Pune were invited to Bombay on the 11th of February 1923. During the Gutta meeting, Baba expressed concern about how they could accommodate their guests and at the same time prevent contamination since there was plague in Pune. A lengthy discussion ensued on this point, and it was finally decided that the moment they arrived, they should be sent to the seashore to bathe and wash their clothes. They would be admitted to the Manzil, but only after they had discarded all the fine gifts and food which they might have brought for Baba and the Mandali. However, when Sadashiv Patil and Kak Sahib that night, ordered that hot water be poured over them. They were made to take a bath in the compound with all their clothes on. Meanwhile, rehearsal for the play Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, to be staged during the master's birthday, created much merriment, but also much confusion. And we have a footnote that says a silent film, Julius Caesar, was one of the first films ever shown in Pune around 1911. Baba had taken his brother Jal and cousin Pendu to see the film. Some of the men were overacting and some forgot their lines. In the end, it was decided to cancel the play. On the daily schedule effect in the Manzil. It was noted on the bulletin board. From 9 to 11 a.m., playing of any game, 11 to 12, lunch, 12 to 1, the Gutta meeting, 1:30 to 3:30, rest, 3:30 to 5 p.m., any game, 6:30 to 7, dinner, and 7 to 8, bhajan. Pune Mandal arrived the next morning and were sent to Chowpatty Beach to bathe in the sea and wash their clothes. Upon their return, they were permitted inside the Manzil. On 13 February, a large pandal, a tent, was erected over the backyard of the compound for Mahashivratri and Baba's 29th birthday celebration. Bhajan singing was held there at midnight. Baba, however, spent most of the time with Ghani in the upper hall. While talking with Ghani about esoteric matters, the master explained the difference between natural, unnatural, and supernatural principles. By acting according to the principles of nature and not going against it, the result arrived at is natural. But by not following the principles of nature and going against it, naturally the result is unnatural. By following the natural way, if the result proves unnatural, then that can be called supernatural. For example, it is natural to eat food by the mouth and pass excrement from the rectum, but it is supernatural to eat by the mouth and not pass any stool. If instead of feeding one's self by the mouth, one is fed through the rectum, then that is unnatural. On the 15th of February, a search was made throughout Bombay for the blind and destitute. But this time, Baba's standard of what defined a poor person was more general, and there was no great hardship involved in bringing the required number to the Manzil. The feeding lasted until 4 p.m., and almost 800 people were fed. The men broke their fast of 24 hours at 9 that night, as ordered by the master. However, Baba did not break his fast and remained on buttermilk. The next morning, the Mandali who lived in Pune left for their homes, along with Syed Jamadar, who had been staying in the Manzil until then. Meanwhile, a Muslim named Maulvi Abdul Wahid of Hyderabad arrived in Bombay in search of a friend and stayed in the mosque at Dadar. While he was meditating in the mosque, he saw a bright light issuing from the Manzil. He immediately concluded that there must be a divine personality inhabiting the place. The next day, when he sat in meditation, he saw a still brighter light, and in its brilliance, he was able to read the words Manzil Amim. On the 6th, it was on the 16th of February when Wahid could no longer remain passive to his vision. He came and stood outside the Manzil. He was in such a dazed state that he ended up standing on the sidewalk the whole night without speaking to anyone. The next morning, the master noticed the stranger outside. He sent Gustaji to inquire about the reason for his silent sentry by the gate. Wahid narrated his story about the light he had experienced in the mosque and added that he felt profound peace within himself near the Manzil. By Baba's order, Wahid was directed to Munshiji's house, where he was given food and informed about who Meher Baba was. After dinner, a meeting of the Gutta was called, and the Mandali asked, "Why is it that we always hear of outsiders, such as the Malvi priest, today, having great experiences of your divinity and seeing brilliant lights? Why are we, who you say are left in the dark?" Baba gave a brief but convincing explanation. What happens when you place a kerosene lantern on the floor? It sheds light all around, but the area which is closest to it, encircling its base, is always dark. So it is with you who are closest to me. What is the use of all these great experiences and seeing of light? One day I will give you the real light and you will be out of the darkness forever. Wouldn't you rather have that? Baba's mother, Shireen Mai, and his aunt, Dala Masi, his cousin, Naja, Gulmai, Dalit Mai, and her sister, Franny, came to Bombay for Baba's birthday celebration. The ladies' lodging arrangement was made on the top floor of the Manzil. Baba vacated his room for them and stayed downstairs with the Mandali. In the evening, finding the food Dala Masi had cooked insufficient for all, Baba became extremely annoyed. He picked up the jars of pickles and other edibles she had brought to the Manzil and threw them onto the nearby railway track. Dala Masi had prepared rawa with fried raisins, almonds, and pure ghee, and had even borrowed the money to prepare all these delicacies. Hers was not a serious mistake, nor had she done it intentionally. But Dala Masi, nevertheless, fell prey to her nephew's divine wrath. In a short time, deadly silence reigned in the Manzil, except for Baba's roaring and rapid strides back and forth throughout the house. The women and men disappeared in fright, hiding behind the locked doors of their rooms, some under their sheets. Baba was stalking about like a tiger, despite his having fasted for so many days. His extraordinary strength greatly amazed the Mandali, especially since he was suffering from dysentery. He finally picked up a flower pot and hurled it at his aunt. Frightened, the plump woman ran away and bounded over the veranda just as the flower pot crashed into the railing, barely missing her. Dala Masi was short and stout. It was amazing to see her hurdle the railing and leap to the ground. In this humorous sight, Baba's mood changed almost as suddenly as it had begun. The situation calmed down. In a tranquil mood, he began smiling and talked lovingly with Dala Masi and the other women, as if nothing had occurred a few minutes before. But there had been a reason for the master's outburst. On the day he fractured his toe, he had told the Mandali about Asar Sahib, saying how unlucky he was and that the news of this tragic situation would reach them within a week. This foretelling of misfortune came true when on the same day he became upset with Dala Masi, they received a letter from Asar. Okay, let's have someone else take over. Rosalie, how about you?
Despite his promise, Asar had written to Baba saying he was leaving him as he desired, quotes, another connection, end quotes, implying another guru. It is possible that Baba's outward expression of anger toward Dala Masi was meant for Asar's benefit. Nevertheless, Dala Masi was fortunate to have withstood her nephew's wrath and to have received his prasad. Soon after, Masaji was sent to the bazaar, and everything for the birthday celebration was cooked again by Dalamasi. Now, who is Dala? Is she Shireen's sister?
Yeah, she's the one who was mothering Jamshed. And
Is
they had
she
the restaurant in. They had a restaurant in in
First
that
in
street.
Lanavala at first.
And
Yeah,
she's
and then
one-
near Babajan, and she used
Yeah.
to be loved by Babajan.
Okay, and she always helps Marwan out, right? That's
And
the
she
one.
always was cooking. She and her husband were
Yeah.
cooking.
Okay.
Faradu.
Okay, Baba's birthday was anticipated with much excitement and joy. The festivities were scheduled for Monday, February 19th. As the day dawned, many invited guests began pouring into the Manzil. The atmosphere was full of happy animation. Naval decorated the Manzil, its compound, and the pandal. Flower pots were arranged and young saplings beautified the grounds. Cascades of flowers were hung around the house, and a special velvet sofa was brought for the master and splendidly decorated by Munchaji. The scene was quite lovely, and breezes swung the sheets of flowers, wafting their fragrance throughout the premises. When Baba was requested to occupy the sofa, however, he refused on several pretexts. After great beseeching, he entered the pandal, but sat on the floor, where he was profusely garlanded. A mound of sweet-smelling flowers was laid before him. Despite Baba's unwillingness, his friends, relatives, and admirers showered him with various beautiful gifts, which he distributed among the people present. In the evening, Munchaji approached the master with the hope that he would occupy the sofa if he insisted. But Baba remained adamant, and Munchaji had to be content with garlanding him where he sat. The evening brought more guests from Pune, including Usman Khan, Abdullah Harun Jaffer, Dr. Abdur Rahman, Ghani's younger brother, Elim, and approximately 200 other persons.
Footnote says Abdurrahman was a veterinarian.
Baba ate with everyone seated on the floor under the pandal. The lunch and dinner were exceptionally delicious. And this time, Dalamasi's cooking was complimented by Baba. After dinner, a Qawwali program began. 3 singers had been called, but only one, Yasin, sang until the last. But only one, Yasin, sang until the last, pleasing Baba and all with his touching renditions. This program lasted until 4:30 in the morning, and all heartily enjoyed it in Baba's radiant presence. The next day, Baba had a private meeting with Daulatmai, Gulmai, and her son Rustam. Baba asked Daulatmai, "Are you willing to marry your daughter Pirosha Raini to Rustam?" Daulatmai agreed, as this arrangement had been planned for some months. Later that afternoon, Baba betrothed Rustam and Pirosha, who had also come for the birthday, in Manzil, which gave great pleasure to their mothers. Later, Baba remarked, After Rustam's wedding, I am thinking of moving to some village for a while. Gulmai then suggested, why don't you come and visit our property near Arangawan, outside Ahmednagar? Baba coyly asked her, why do you say that? Gulmai replied, your visit has been foretold by a local saint, Galore Sha. Baba, pretending not to follow, said that he did not understand what she meant.
Sure.
Gulmai then narrated this story. A few years ago, my husband, Kaikushru Khan Saheb, secured a contract to supply incandescent lights to the military barracks located near the village of Arangawan. It is 6 miles from the town of Ahmednagar, and he used to visit there occasionally on business. At the end of World War I, a man bought the entire establishment from the military. Since the land was unsuitable for cultivation, it was, in turn, offered for sale, but no one was interested in buying such fallow land. As a result, the owner approached Kaikushu, who consulted his business partners, but they too were uninterested in buying what they called jungle land. He asked my opinion, and I wondered what we would do with it, since we would never be able to move there because it was too far from the city. Nevertheless, he bought the land on his own, thinking it might prove useful in the future. The few buildings remained unattended for a long time and became dilapidated. Any useful material was stolen by the villagers. Occasionally, we used to visit the place because Kaikushru had hired the head man of the village to sow millet there. A Mohammedan saint called Hazrat Maulana Galore Sha lives in Ahmednagar. He occasionally comes to our house for a meal, but usually he prefers to keep aloof. He dislikes the pretense of any crowd. He dislikes the presence of any crowd. When Masaji was working in Ahmednagar, he used to take bread and butter to the saint and sometimes would bathe him. Galore Shah would often mention that he wanted to go to Arangawan and live his last days there. I thought that it was an unsuitable place for such a personage and would argue, but Hazrat, who will bring your meals there? And who will look after you in the jungle? He would frown, saying, all of these people are of no use to me, and I do not require their help. There were some wealthy butchers who used to pay him respect and who offered him some land. However, he preferred our place and would tell them that he would only settle at Arangawan. He would request me, give me a small portion of your land and build a room for me. Take me there and also bring Upasni Maharaj and Meher Baba. Turn the place into a sadhu khana, an ashram for wandering mendicants and pilgrims. I would listen to him, but try to dissuade him, knowing it would cause an uproar among our in-laws. One night, a year later, I dreamed that I was seated in the compound of a small old house. A child, all wrapped in cloth, was on my lap. A couple of persons were speaking to me as my eyes gazed downward. I saw the head of the child peeping out from under its covering. The child then sat up, and I saw that he had the face of the saint. I cried out, "This child is Hazrat Galore Sha." He sweetly pleaded, "Me, or Ma, Ma, you are not giving me the land? Where will I rest?" I instantly remembered the land that Arangalan promised him. "Yes, Hazrat, I will give it to you." The moment I finished speaking, I awakened. I narrated the dream to my husband, telling him that the saint had been insisting on the land for some years, and Kaikhushru promised to fulfill his request. The next day, Galore Sha, accompanied by some of his devotees, went to Arangalan. There he selected a small plot of land and told them, "Prepare my tomb here." This statement surprised them, and they pleaded, "But Hazrat, who will come so far from the city to pay homage here? This is a desolate place and uninhabitable." The saint then reprimanded them. "You are like children. You know nothing. In a short time, this place will turn into a garden of pilgrimage. A great one will come here, and this land will one day belong to the people of the world. Only then will you understand why I am buried here." One day, I went with the saint to look at the site he had selected. A mason joined us, and the plot was measured and changes were made as directed by him. Then the saint turned to me and said, "When I die, bring me here, escorted by a band. Bury me at this place."
Okay, Rosalie, let's let someone else pick up.
Let me finish a couple of lines. He's pleading now. I got to get the plead. I pleaded, "Your Mohammedan followers will never permit the ban." He replied, "Yes, I know that. So you will have to drive them away to do as I tell you. Tell them that I have no caste or creed." Then he concluded, "Meher Baba will soon come here, and before he does, you should have my tomb erected. And all that will happen will be exactly as I am telling you. I promised him accordingly." Okay, I'm off.
All right. Michal, would you like to take over?
Okay. Baba was glad to hear this story and did not object to Gulmai carrying out the saint's wishes. Gulmai then inquired when he would come to Arangaon. Baba grinned and replied, "I may or I may not come." "You will have to come," said Gulmai. "Well, we'll see. Meanwhile, construct Galore Sha's tomb as he wishes," Baba instructed. Externally, this was how Meher Baba worked. His inner work was continual and manifested in a natural sequence of events. No one knew that while residing in the Manzil, he was preparing the ground for his next abode. It only came to light during this conversation with Gulmai. What impact the avatar has in world affairs, who can know? It is literally true that not a leaf moves without his will. Baba sent the guests away the day after his birthday celebration. He remarked to the Mandali, "Yesterday, I watched all of you eat too much. The rich food should be properly digested or else you will fall sick." All cringed at the thought of another march, and Ahmed Khan was anxiously waiting for the master to signal the order. Instead, Baba said, "There is only one cure that will help. Today, we must all laugh a lot. Hearty laughter will digest the food." All were delighted at this novel suggestion, and many humorous anecdotes were told. Baba too shared in the jokes and made the Mandali laugh. During the afternoon of 20 February, the following appeared on the notice board. From 12 noon to 2 p.m. daily is the time now 2 p.m. daily is the time now fixed for my eating and drinking. In this way, the fast of 24 hours will continue for days and days together. I want to read that again. From 12 noon to 2 p.m. daily is the time now fixed for my eating and drinking. In this way, the fast of 24 hours will continue for days and days together. Merwan. But the very next day, Baba changed the time from the afternoon to the evening hours, from 7 to 9 p.m. He stated that he would only eat and drink water between these 2 hours, and that from 9 p.m. until 7 p.m. of the following day, he would not drink or eat anything. Again on 23rd February 1923, 200 poor, crippled, or blind persons were brought and fed at the Manzil, and 50 of these were given clothes. Baba would daily stress to the Mandali the importance of complete obedience to his orders, and would daily find fault with someone. In the first days of the Manzil, he would say, "By making you eat ghee and wear a coat and pants, I will realize you." This meant that despite giving them all the comforts of the world, he would still bestow God realization upon them. But by the closing day of the Manzil, the Mandali felt dissatisfied with good food and clothes, and realization was far from actuality. Their experience in Manzil Amim was only the beginning of their discipleship. They had no idea of the hardships which they would have to undergo in the near future. Daula Masi had recently visited Pasni Maharaj at Sakori. On 24 February, she told Baba and the Mandali what she had witnessed there. Maharaj has become very weak, imprisoned in a small bamboo pinjra cage. He had not left that cage once in 3 months, remaining seated inside it. He is often heard repeating Merwan's name. He seems to long to see Merwan. Gulmai had also been to Sakori recently, and she revealed that Maharaj had complained to her, "Why did Merwan have my life published? That book will drag me into trouble. It is not good. I don't want people to know of me."
Yeah.
He also complained about those at Sakori. "Tell them to stop this arty business before me. I don't want to be worshipped. I am planning to take samadhi, die, in this pinjar." Distressed Gulmai inquired, "What is the purpose of your sitting in this cage?" Angrily Maharaj replied, "It is on account of you and on account of the whole world. What do you expect? What does the world expect from me? When one's eyesight becomes weak, one has to wear spectacles. Similarly, when I am unable to do anything for the good of the world, I have to do this." Gulmai then pleaded, "How long will you remain in this cage?" Maharaj responded, "Still there is time. When I do come out, I shall either leave Sakori or leave this body." Hearing these stories, Baba remained quiet for quite a while and then spoke a seemingly cryptic sentence. "It is better to die than to live. Better to fear than to die. Better to feel than to fear. And better to do or make than to feel." The Mandali were at loss to understand these words, and the master explained in his own inimitable way. To die does not mean the ordinary death of the body, but the real death of the ego, that is, to die before death, which amounts to becoming one with God. To fear is also not to be taken literally. To fear means to be in the state of one created in spite of realizing oneself as the creator or God. This is the state of a gross conscious, perfect master, which is more difficult to attain and spiritually superior to that of a Manzil, one who remains eternally immersed in the ocean of divinity, intoxicated continuously. To fill means to fill the hearts of people with the wine of divine knowledge. To do or make is the highest possible attainment. It means to make others perfect like yourself, to do for others what you have done for yourself, to make them like yourself in terms of power, knowledge, authority, and duty. This is the most supreme state, the state of being a perfect master. The meaning of my words is that it is better to be one with God than to lead a worldly life. Better to return to normal consciousness after union with God than to remain divinely absorbed. Better to fill the hearts of others with divine love than to remain indifferent to humanity. And better to make others one with God than merely to fill their hearts with love. More news about Pasni Maharaj's condition came from Sakori. Memo was also visiting in Bombay, and on 25th February, she was sent to Sakori to inquire on Baba's behalf about Maharaj. Shirinmai returned on the 27th and gave this account. When I went near Maharaj's cage in Sakori, he slapped me. Maharaj put out his hand from behind the bars and, catching me with one hand, severely slapped me with the other. My bangles were broken. Not being accustomed to such harsh treatment, I was very upset and immediately prepared to leave Sakori. But I was detained for a day, during which Maharaj called me to him 4 times. He not only abused me each time, but shouted against Merwan and some of you men. Warningly, he said, your son Merwan pretends that he is a Sadguru. He is impersonating a guru. Gulmai then narrated that Maharaj had warned her also. Don't go to Merwan anymore. He will misguide you. You will wither like a tree afflicted by disease. And consequently, in the end, you will have to come to me. For your sake, stay away from him. Hearing this, Baba gathered the mandali in the hall upstairs and asked, what is your understanding of this? Only a few days back, Maharaj had spoken quite well about me to Daulamasi and expressed his love for me. They replied that Baba had hinted about it since their stay at Manzil. He then smiled and said, I started this game. I wrote to Maharaj that I had no connection whatever either with him, Durgabai, or anyone else at Sakori, and it was I who sent my mother to him. Because of this letter, he has now taken the step which he should have taken long ago. Now that I have started this game, it will not end with me. It is in Maharaj's hands. I have been continually telling you that Maharaj and the whole world will turn against me, and this is only the beginning. So be prepared. Everything will take a turn, just as I said it would. He concluded cryptically. April is approaching after a gap of a year. After dinner, Baba directed Adi Senior to write the following message to Upasni Maharaj. Meher Baba did not at all like your remarks to his mother, made in the presence of others at Sakori. He is now fed up with his duty, the burden of the work, and wants to abandon it. This letter was read out before the mandali, and Baba said, be cautious and do not misunderstand what is now occurring between Maharaj and me, or be taken in by this business of our exchanging harsh words. A secret game was being played, thought age, and only the masters knew what it meant and what the consequences were. Rustam was sent to Sakori to personally deliver Baba's letter and received Maharaj's reply. After his return to the Manzil on the 3rd, Rustam reported, I reached Sakori on the evening of 1 March and took Maharaj's darshan. He talked to me civilly as he had in the past. Since the day he caged himself, He has ordered the ringing of the temple bells all day and night. The next morning at 4 o'clock, during the absence of his devotees, I was requested to ring the bells continuously for 2 hours. Later, when I went for Maharaj's darshan, I found him in a changed mood. Gradually, Maharaj began speaking against Baba and the Mandali later. When I next neared the cage, Maharaj rebuked me and vehemently abused Baba and the Mandali. Before returning to Bombay, I went to him for the last time, and he exploded in fury. He looks extremely angry, while vituperating, sent this message to the Mandali: let everyone go his own way. Mewan is not a Satpurush, perfect one, and I am no longer responsible for him in any way. He is a fake. After this outburst, I asked Maharaj, how is your spiritual work connected with these pieces of bamboo cage? I admit that your self-imposed imprisonment is for our sake, but we do not like to see you suffering and would rather see you out and free. Maharaj then told me to break the cage bar. I immediately began struggling with the pieces of bamboo and broke one. This made Maharaj even more angry, and he cursed at me. Maharaj forbade me to touch it again, and a carpenter was sent to repair the damaged bar. He then asked, why did you break my cage? I replied, you yourself told me to do so. Maharaj said, all right, now will you do what I want you to do? I replied, of course. He then told me, bring that big stone over here and strike it on my head with all your might. At this, I became frightened. Maharaj then hurled the choicest abuses at Baba and different ones of the Mandali. During this, the carpenter was repairing the cage. He continued cursing until I told him I was leaving for Bombay. Baba then asked the Mandali, do you still want to stay with me to the end? You have heard what Maharaj has said. Even he has begun opposing me, except for Gani. All said they would hold to the promise they had given and would not leave him in any circumstances. Gani didn't. Gani said that he would think it over and answer later. Baba warned the Mandali, stay with me under all circumstances and don't be influenced by either what Maharaj or Babajan says. It is likely that both may denounce me in public, but the Mandali should rest assured that both are my masters and the greatest living spiritual personalities of this age. This proclamation of mine stands without exception at any time in the future.
Okay, thank you, Michal. Eugene, you want to take over here?
Baba then turned to Gani and inquired, have you thought it over? Gani replied, I will be with you until the end. There is nothing to think about. I just wanted to tease you.
That's funny.
At this reply, all burst into laughter. Baba had predicted Maharaj's apparent hostility towards him. Earlier, when Maharaj had been praising Baba, Baba declared in a serious tone, Maharaj is speaking highly of me, but you will hear quite the opposite from his mouth about me. Even if someone were to utter my name in front of Maharaj, that person will not be spared, and that time is not far off. Maharaj's declarations against Baba reached such an extent that several of Baba's staunch followers faltered in their faith, stopped coming for Baba's darshan, and joined Maharaj again. A ping pong table was brought to the Manzil, and all, including Baba, enjoyed a few games. After fasting on one meal every 24 hours for 2 consecutive months, Baba lengthened his fasting from 36 to 42 hours. On the notice board during 2 March 1923, the Mandali found this written: "From now on, no one should purposely touch my body, Merwan." None of the men could understand why he had this message posted, and they discussed it among themselves. 2 days later, while playing cricket in the morning of 4 March, there was a tussle between Vishnu and Adi, who had deliberately struck Vishnu. That evening, Baba gathered the men in the hall and asked Baramji what the disturbance was during the game. Baramji explained about the quarrel between Adi and Vishnu. Baba asked the Mandali, "Didn't Adi break one of the 28 orders?" The majority, however, took Adi's side, reasoning he was not to blame due to the excitement of the game. But Baba would not listen to them and severely corrected Adi in their presence. He humiliated Adi and scolded him terribly for breaking the order. Baba then angrily turned toward Vishnu and demanded, "Repeat your confession in the presence of all." Some days before, when Vishnu was massaging the master's feet, he had had undesirable thoughts and had immediately stopped. Vishnu had admitted this to Baba, but only after reading the latest notice on the board. Vishnu had concluded that no action, physical or mental, ever remains hidden from the master. The Mandali then understood the meaning of that notice, and Baba felt pleased at Vishnu's frank confession. Baba then told everyone to leave except Adi, whom he asked, "Did you feel hurt at my insulting treatment?" Adi replied that he felt very hurt. Baba comforted him by saying, "Don't think about it anymore. To pass through the phase of insults is very good for you. Making the guilty party pass through such trying ordeals is one of the ways of cleaning away the guilt of his action." Even Swami Ramakrishna once insulted his close disciple, Vivekananda, by telling him in a harsh, derogatory tone to go away and never come back. But shortly afterward, he had him called back and consoled him. "It is my love that has been the cause of humiliating you before the others. I treated Vishnu in the same way, yet he disregarded my insult and told the truth in their presence." Baba then embraced Adi.
A footnote says Ramakrishna was a perfect master from 1836 to 1886. He lived. After his death, his chief disciple, Swami Vivekananda, spread Ramakrishna's teachings in America and England during 1893 to 1895.
There are several beautiful tapes of Vivekananda's talk, especially one in United Nations. Very beautiful. Anyway.
And it's just before Baba was born. So it's like before,
Yeah.
the preparation
Getting
for Baba's
prepared.
coming.
Yes.
The next day, a loud argument ensued between Baba and Ghani over Ghani's sleeping late. Baba, Baba insisted that he leave the Manzil, but after Ghani stubbornly refused, Baba asked him, "Will you follow my orders from now on or follow your love for sleep?" Ghani smilingly said he would follow Baba's orders. Baba then said, "Since you have slept for practically the whole day, you may do night duty until 2 o'clock. Ghani happily agreed. Baba had encouraged the men to write ghazals, and at times, for recreation after the evening meal, the Mandali would compose some poetry. But their poems usually had no meter or rhyme. On 6 March, while Baba was in the middle of composing a humorous poem, he suddenly said, "I feel like using the toilet, but I don't wish to leave the subject incomplete." He then asked if anyone would stay by his side in the bathroom in order to write down his composition. Ghani and Adi agreed. Baba sat in the middle stall. Adi took the one to his right and Ghani the one to his left. Ramju, Faradun, and Asma stood outside. For half an hour, the muse of poetic inspiration was wooed in this seemingly unpoetic atmosphere. A God conscious master never does anything without some purpose, age observed, and all enjoyed the humor of this peculiar situation. The greatest penance one can do is to dance to every whim of the master. It is the highest type of devotion. As Baba so often emphasized, that which is given and received in a moment's company of the master cannot be gained, even by thousands of years of austerities and penance.
Footnote, Sai Baba once explained that he contacted his spiritual agents on the inner planes during his Lendi ceremony.
He had a whole orchestra going with him there.
On 7 March 1923, after almost 3 months of strict containment in the premises of Manzil and Neem, Baba went for a short outing to Munshiji's house on Charni Road with Adi, Baramji, Gustaji, Ramju, and Vajifdar. Syed Saheb was staying there and had been feeling depressed for some time. To cheer him up, Baba drove to Munshiji's and returned after a few hours. When he returned, he found 3 messengers from Upasni Maharaj waiting for him. 3 of the Sadhguru's main disciples, Yeshwant Rao, Gopal Rao, and Trimbak, had been sent by Upasni Maharaj to induce Baba to return to Sakori with them. Baba refused, and all their efforts to persuade him were in vain. In the end, they pleaded with him, "If you do not accompany us, Durgabai herself will be sent to bring you." Still, Baba would not budge. And the three disappointed disciples had to return to Sikori the next day without him. Upasni Maharaj had instructed them, somehow bring Merwan to Sikori, or else he will soon stop eating even his one meal a day. The three men had tried their best to prevail upon him, even weeping and beseeching him with folded hands. But Baba remained adamant. This was an invisible tug of war between the two masters. But at the same time, it was also a medium of their universal work for establishing Meher Baba's avatarhood in the world. After some days, Maharaj sent his close woman disciple, Durgabai, to Manzil, but despite her pleas, she also was unable to persuade Baba to come to Sikori. The pandal that had been erected for Baba's birthday celebration had not yet been dismantled. And on Friday, 9 March, it was again decorated to celebrate the engagement of Rustam and Piroja Frani.
Baba changed Dalit Mai's daughter's name from Piroja to Frani to avoid confusion with Rustam's sister, Piroja.
Family members and dignitaries began arriving in the early morning, attired in their finest clothes, and the Manzil took on a festive appearance. 200 tables with white tablecloths were elaborately arranged for the serving of a sumptuous feast prepared by a caterer.
Okay, thanks, Gene. Mahu, would you like to go now?
Sure. Okay. During the meal, a humorous incident occurred. According to Aspandiar Hindu, Gani was seated next to Abdur Rahman. As each different dish was served, Abdur Rahman would nod Gani and ask, "What is this?" And Gani would then explain. At the end of the meal, the servers placed by everyone's plate a small bowl of water and a saucer containing what looked like an after-dinner sweetmeat. It was actually a piece of soap meant for people to wash their hands after the meal. When Abdur Rahman nudged Gani to ask what it was, Gani himself, not knowing what it was, replied, "It's cheese to clean the to clean the palate after the meal." Abdur Rahman popped the soap into his mouth and bite on it. He immediately spat it out, saying, "Chee, disgusting, foul." Then Gani realized it wasn't cheese and smelling it, found it was soap. He began encouraging Abdur Rahman to eat it, saying it tasted like that because it was old cheese, but assuring Abdur Rahman that it was very good. Naughty boy. Poor Abdur Rahman tried it again. And then stood and left the pandal spitting. When he returned, he tried to pretend nothing had happened, but his misjudgment had not escaped the notice of those at his table. Word of this amusing incident soon spread, causing laughter as soon as the story was repeated. When Baba came to know about it, he called Abdul Rahman and asked, "Don't you know how to behave? Why did you eat the bar soap?" Embarrassed, Abdul nervously explained, "Sometimes at the end of feasts, there is a small piece of cheese or sweet served. I ate it, thinking it to be cheese." Soon after, to add further to Abdul Rahman's discomfort, Baba had the gong struck to gather the mandali and told them to read what he had written on the notice board. "From today, Abdul should be called Cheese, Merwan." All dispersed, but again the gong was sounded. When the mandali went up to Baba's room, he pointed to the notice board on which he had scribbled, "Cheese is now changed to bar soap." Someone else had suggested this variation, and Baba had approved of it. There were now 5 residents with official nicknames: Asthma, Beidou, Nervous, Slamson, and Bar Soap. More would follow.
Excuse me, didn't someone say that Bauji is bar soap?
No,
No.
Bauji is nervous.
Nervous. So who
He even
was,
confirmed it for us. Yeah, Bauji is nervous.
Oh,
who
But
was
anyway.
nervous? What was his name changed from to become nervous?
Khodadad something Irani. He was a
Uh.
Parsi. Yeah, an actor, very handsome actor. Yeah.
oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, his picture is there.
Handsome.
Very handsome, tall. He was applying to be an actor in the movie industry, and Baba recruited him. It's just, we read it here in Lord Meher. Anyway, in the afternoon, Yasin Kual started singing Kualis. He was so inspired, he continued until 10:30 p.m. Then all retired after thoroughly enjoying the engagement party. Baba called Franny and told her that he forbade her from returning to Sakuri. So she went to stay with Gulmai's sister in Paro until the wedding. The betrothal of Rostam and Franny brought Dolat Mai in every close connection with Baba, and she, in her love for him, surrendered everything to him. By Baba's intervention, one of her daughters was now engaged, and her other daughter, Mehera, who was then staying in Sikori, was soon to be wedded to the sweet music of Meher Baba's divine song. During the preparations and arrangements for the engagement party, Sarosh had been given the duty of ferrying visitors in a car kept at the Manzil. One day while returning to the Manzil, he accidentally knocked down a woman outside their gate. She was uninjured, and when he told Baba what had happened, Baba gave him a Baba locket and said, "From now on, wear this, not only while driving, but day and night for the rest of your life." Sarosh put it on and never took it off. After the biography of Upasni Maharaj was released to the public, critics were in an uproar against certain spiritual figures. On 14 March 1923, excuse me, more articles appeared in the Bombay newspapers slandering Meher Baba. But amazingly, the more that opposition to Baba spread, the more his name came into prominence. The Gujarati newspaper Insaf went so far as to print an appeal to public leaders to take drastic steps to rip to pieces the net of the corruptive and depraved trio of Meher Baba, Baba Jan, and Upasni Maharaj. During this period, the master would sometimes visit a local theater with the mandali, but he would rarely stay until the completion of the film or play. He went for his inner work, and as soon as that work was finished, whether it was during the middle of an act or not, he would stand up in the theater and promptly depart. The mandali had no choice but to follow, abandoning their enjoyment and curiosity of how the play would end. But on 19 March, when he took the mandali to see a comedy called Deep Waters, he unexpectedly stayed until the last curtain call, much to the surprised satisfaction of the mandali. On 24 March, Ghani returned to the Manzil at 7:30 p.m. After a 6-day visit to his home in Lonavala, he arrived late and refusing to admit him to the building. Baba sent him his message: undress and then stand on one foot in your underwear at the edge of the fountain. Ghani did so, not knowing what was in store for him. Some of the mandali snuck behind him and threw buckets of cold water on him. Ghani yelled loudly, "Baba, save me from this frigid dozing. I haven't disobeyed any of your orders. Help me, please." Baba laughed heartily at his plight, pardoned Ghani for being late, and finally allowed him to enter. But the master's good humor did not last long. The next day, for some unknown reason, Baba became furious with everyone and wanted to go away. The mandali pleaded, "If you leave, we will follow you." Baba seemed seriously disturbed. He remained lying down in the backyard for some time and then stood for an hour in the blazing summer sun. He sent someone to fetch a Victoria, horse-drawn carriage. Then he sent another for the same purpose, and then yet another. 3 Victorias arrived at the gate of the Manzil, and the mandali were confused about what to do. He did not go for a ride, but had the Victorias paid off. Baba then climbed over the compound wall and again laid down to rest. He remained outside for a long time, finally coming back inside and quietly going upstairs to his room. His actions were uncomfortable to those who witnessed them.
Unfathomable.
I'm sorry, yes. His actions were unfathomable to those who witnessed them. Later that evening, Baba became displeased with Ghani and told him, If you wish, you can stay at home for 2 months, or else stay here. But if you stay here, I will ignore you and have no connection with you. Gani did not like either choice, but did not reply. Baba then told him, you may stay here with no other orders except the original 7 and the general 28 orders. But you must not speak or write to me. Otherwise, you are free to do as you like. Sleep for 20 hours at a stretch. I have no objection. Later in the night, Baba forgave Gani. But Gani still had no idea what he had done to warrant such treatment. During this period, although Baba had given the order that the Mandali should follow him wherever he went, it was understood that if he gave 2 orders, they should obey the first. Once in an irritated mood, Baba said he was leaving the Manzil and going to Sakori alone. The Mandali followed as he started to walk to Dadar station. Baba looked back and demanded that they go back, but they proceeded to follow. Baba looked around again and said, don't follow me, go back to the Manzil. But again, they continued to follow him. He then said lovingly, all right, we will all go back. Thus, acknowledging the fact that they were obeying his first order to follow him wherever he went. Wow. At Rustam's engagement party, Gulmai again requested that Baba visit Ahmednagar, urging, your stay in Arangan will be a great blessing to us. Your presence will sanctify not only Ahmednagar, but the entire area. At that time, Baba accepted Gulmai's invitation, but did not promise to stay permanently. 2 weeks passed. Baba broached the topic of sending some of the Mandali away to their respective homes, saying, in a few days, I intend to disband Manzil Amin. After Rustam's marriage in May at Ahmednagar, I will stay at Arangan. There I will remain, but in quite a different way, with only a few men who will have to face great hardships. The life in Arangan will be quite the reverse of what it is here. Like in a big city like Bombay. And those who remain with me and have to work like coolies, laborers. Coolies means laborers.
All right, thank you, Maho. Rainey, are you with us to read today? No, maybe she's a little busy. We only have a few minutes left. Let me read another page here.
No, she can't.
Oh, good.
I'm
Go ahead,
sorry.
Rainey.
I
Wanna
just
take it?
turned the kettle off. Sorry.
Okay,
Where were we? Gani?
right at the top, yeah.
Gani quipped, in that case, you should call it Hirangaon, hardship village. I have to write that down. I live there. Hirangaon instead of Arangaon. Oh, we have to remember to tell Ward that. Baba then explained that the connection with those whom he would send away. Dear, I have to read you this line again. Gani quipped, then in that case we should call it Harangaon, hardship village, instead of Arangaon. He laughed. Baba then explained that the connection with those whom he would send away would remain as it was at present, and he might call anyone back to him at any time in the future. Each man promised to remain faithful to him. Those whom he had decided to send back to their homes received their following instructions from among the 7 special orders. Continue to follow orders 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. These orders were 1. To follow to the letter the spiritual instructions given by me. 2. To keep or break the special connection with one other man or more than one from the group or otherwise that I order. 3. To totally abstain from 12 months from alcoholic drinks or intoxicating substances, as well as sexual intercourse, except when allowed by me with your legal wife. 4. To eat, drink, and dress in accordance with the other residents in the house. To avoid eating fish, meat, and eggs under any circumstances. 7. Under no circumstances to give up my company, even if one finds that the whole world turns against me, except when ordered to leave me.
Mm.
From among the 28 general orders, continue following 1, 9, 13, 14, 18, 19, and 25. These orders were 1. Baths should be taken daily. After a haircut, an extra bath is permitted. 9. Eating less than to your full satisfaction is strictly prohibited.
Mm.
Wow. Report the reason for your inability to eat despite hunger and, also, in the case of no appetite after accepting food. 13. Lies, abusive language, and ill feeling towards one another are not allowed to the extent of breaking my order. 14. Do not read books, newspapers, magazine, and anyone else's letters. 18. In order to avoid impure actions, do not touch anyone while having sexual thoughts. Avoid vulgar stories and other such topics of conversation. 19. Do not touch any girl except your mother or sisters. 25. Before going to sleep, cover your ears with a piece of cloth or put cotton in them. On the 31st of March, Baba sent away most of the Mandali and remained with a very few in the Manzil. Ramju and Ghani were sent to Lanavla for a month to visit their families. Partitions made of gunny sacks had been installed in the Manzil to make individual rooms for the Mandali. That's Hessian sacks. But after the departure of most of the men, the partitions were taken down. I have to get that. Sorry, the doctor.
It's 1:30.
Okay, I think we could end it here. I'm going to stop the.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that next week. Read that paragraph. Can you? No, it's from the within a few days.
Here we are.
It's yeah. Okay.
I have to